Welcome to Face to Face. This is a show about change and about what's next. It's a show that wants to ask questions, peel back the layers of our average everyday experience, and go beyond scratching the surface. We interview amazing people with incredible ideas and stories who have done wild, weird, and wonderful things. Remember that imagination shared creates collaboration, and collaboration creates community, and community inspires social change. I'm David Peck, and this is Face to Face. So welcome to Face to Face. We're joined by a guest here in Toronto by the name of Rob Mills. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, but I think I'm going to leave most of that up to him. We actually have a live studio audience today. Matthew DeCero and Fred Stinson, two friends and two fellow performers. In fact, my second guest, Matthew DeCero. Check out his podcast on Face to Face if you haven't already. So Rob, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks
Excellent.
for having me.
You probably could hear all the applause in the background. It was... David!
Okay.
So Rob, I thought it was just Fred and Matt that were here.
No.
So Rob was executive producer at CBC executive producer of Kids CBC for over a year, I think. Executive producer and president of Radical Sheep Productions. He's a writer. He's an actor. He plays Jumanji. So Rob, can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do and why the hell am I interviewing you?
Yeah, I don't know why the hell you're interviewing me. I think we'll discover that as we go along. I wear many hats. I started out as a performer and was doing theater and ended up working with Jim Henson's Muppets starting back in '82 on Fraggle Rock. So I got to jump around inside Junior Gorg and do a bunch of other characters. And I worked with the Henson organization for about 15 years on various shows. And during that time was always driving myself towards getting into production and trying to make our own shows happen. And I partnered up with Cheryl Wagner, and we made a show called Big Comfy Couch. So most of our stuff has all been sort of geared towards children's work. And from there, not just producing, but also writing. And then I started hiring myself as a director because nobody else was going to. Right. And I ended up on numerous shows of our own that we did. I was, again, wearing the multiple hats of writer, producer, director, performer.
So were you ever on the other side of the camera? Or how much time have you spent in front of the camera?
What, me, my own face? Yeah. I like to hide my own face. I'm a puppeteer, so
you've never actually...
I'm under the camera as opposed to in front of it. Yeah.
How about any stage work, any kind of theater?
Yeah. Back before I got into the television stuff, which pays, which is why I stuck to that.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
The theater stuff I'd done was mostly clowning, commedia dell'arte, mime. God help me. Mask work. I did acrobatics for a while. I was performing on the street. I did some legitimate theater. I was in
what's legitimate theater?
I was at Theatre Pass Mariah in a Sam Shepard play. That's about it.
Okay. So was it a conscious decision to go into working with kids TV? To me, that seems like a real specialty right out of the gate.
It does in a way, and it wasn't really a conscious decision. It just seemed, one, that's where the work was, and secondly, that's what I had already been being hired to do as a performer. Starting with Muppets with Fraggle, and then got into Canadian Sesame Street, and I was performing and writing in there. And it just, like, one thing led to the other. A lot of my career path has not been conscious choices. It's always been sort of stumbling into things and going, I think I'll do this now. And then you look back and you go, okay, I understand where this pathway went. But
I was just going to say,
conscious choice?
It's without a doubt in all the podcasts that I've done so far and most of the interviews I've done over the years, that kind of comes out, that bubbles to the surface. The idea that I wasn't really sure where I was going at the time, but now that I've got 20 years to look back, it makes sense. The dots connect. It all kind of falls into place.
Yeah.
Right?
But still, there's moments where you're like, what was I thinking?
Right. So not a conscious choice. Were you driven by, were you really, you made a crack about the money. Were you really driven by the money in that sense?
I've never really been driven by the money except at that stage because it was a case of being able to eat or not. Literally before I started with Muppets, I was a starving artist. Wow. I made $1,500 the year before I started with Henson. And so being
$1,500 for the year.
For the year.
Wow.
Yeah. I was eating out of a lot of friends' kitchens and
I guess so.
Bumming a lot of food everywhere I could. you get a job in a restaurant, you're eating everything in sight when the manager's not looking.
Right. That really is redefining starving artists. I always thought it was kind of a metaphor.
No, it wasn't. And I used to be skinny. I'm not now. But
right. So you've been blessed.
But no, the money was never really a driving force behind. Yeah, it's great when you get the good paycheck and all that. But I've always been sort of fortunate in you're making the money, then you can have these kinds of choices. Being able to say, I want to do what's fun, and I'm not willing to put up with bullshit. And when something stops being fun, I stop doing it. And much to the consternation of my agent and some other people I've been working with, they just sort of go, but this is what's happening now. It's like, yeah, I don't care.
Where does the creative side fall into that? So you're not motivated by money, you're motivated by fun. Does it go a little deeper than that in the sense that, I don't know, I want to be this great example for children, or I've got these ideas that I want to communicate, or I truly am an artist. I'm no longer starving, so therefore now I can actually get to the real work.
Yeah, there's a bit of that, plus the money. It's hard to separate the money. Well, let me preface that. When I was working in broadcast television, when the bulk of my work was in broadcast, yes, you had to consider the money. One, because you had a lot of financing that you had to raise in order to make these shows. Yep. And then you've got an obligation to pay off your investors and all this stuff. So, yes, you have to be concerned with money on that regard. But a lot of the times the money that was coming in from my various fees and all the different roles that I was doing was getting funneled back into the company itself and the work that we were doing. So it wasn't about, grasping at the cash and stuffing it into my own pockets. The idea of doing something just for fun, no, I mean, it's got to be worth something. There's got to be a reason to do the show, whether it's a television show or a production for a web series or, whatever kind of writing. I'd like to think that there's some substance to it. And especially when we got into doing the kids stuff, it was at a time when there was a lot of kids material that was going out there. It was just pure garbage. And you see more and more of that now. But it was... where the marketing, the merchandising was driving the content. The only reason the shows existed was to sell the toys. Right. And the toys existed before the show did.
Star Wars episodes 1, 2, and 3, isn't it?
Well, pretty much, yeah. He-Man, Masters of the Universe, and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And Barney, of course. I mean, so when we got into doing things like of our own, like Big Comfy Couch and Rufus the Dog and other shows, there was always that sense of, okay, we want to make something that's worthwhile for the kids. I mean, I've had discussions with the broadcasters themselves where they admit they're not programming for the kids. They're programming for the caregivers. We want to give something safe that the parents feel comfortable setting their kids in front of the TV. And whether the show itself is any good or not, we don't care.
Wow, that's a great phrase. Programming, that should be the title of your book.
I'm writing a book? I didn't know.
Well, I thought you were, yeah. Maybe out of this podcast.
Maybe.
Hey, just a little plug for Rob Mills, Robbo Mills, ROBBOMILLS.net. That's Rob's website. We're nowhere near the end of the interview, but I thought I'd get that in there now. And you did mention Rufus the Dog.
Yeah.
And that's RUFUS the Dog.
It's actually 2 Fs.
Oh, it's 2 Fs. Sorry about that.
It's pronounced Rufus, but it's spelled Ruffus. Why? I don't know.
Yeah, neither do I. Anyway, check out either of those sites and find out some more about what Rob's up to right now. So tell me a little bit more about programming for the caregivers.
Yeah, but I mean,
is it really that bad?
It is.
The office, the boardrooms, or wherever they're making these decisions, the Tim Hortons. It's kind of like this has nothing to do with the actual content for the kids, or about growing stronger children who care about things like anti-bullying and so on. This is about
pretty much
keep mom and dad happy and the babysitters.
Yeah. Because and it's astonishing when you sit there, because in public discussions, whether on panels or something like that, they pay lip service to, oh yes, we're looking for the best stuff, and we're always concerned about what's good for the children and blah blah. And it's complete and utter bullshit. They're not. The exception being perhaps the public broadcasters, who, one, they've got an educational mandate they've got to fulfill, but at the same time they're constrained because they have to play it safe. And they can't necessarily make choices that they know are really, really good. I've had discussions with public broadcasters where they go, this is a really great show idea. This is fantastic. We're never going to air it. And it just doesn't, and you're like, what?
You've heard that before. That was a great delivery. Yeah.
It's just right on one big long line of sentence.
How many of your ideas that you've pitched that have never gone anywhere?
90%.
Wow. Yeah. Really? That high?
You have to keep pitching and keep pitching and keep pitching and keep pitching. And it's, as a small independent producer, it's very, very difficult to keep up doing that. You get into a larger company that's been producing for a while and has a track record. We had a track record when I was running Radical Sheep. But
And you ran that for quite a while, right?
Yeah, about 15 years.
15 years.
Yeah. And we did a lot of shows, got a lot of awards, made a lot of money for our investors, and it was great. But we weren't quite at the level that would sustain itself for that kind of work. Because television is an endless maw that must be fed.
Right.
And if you're not able to maintain that pace of feeding into these things, you fall by the wayside. Larger companies that can arrange for multiple co-productions, and they come in every year and they've got a slate of shows they've managed to do because they bundled them all together. That takes a lot of work, takes a lot of effort, a lot of staff. And if you're a smaller production company, it's very difficult to maintain that stuff. And so we would sort of rise and fall upon our fortunes of whether we got a show in production that year.
So much I want to talk about with respect to Canadian TV. Let's get back to that in a second. The best idea you've ever pitched that didn't play?
Oh, Lord. It's been so many.
I bet. Okay, or maybe the worst idea that you pitched that did play. How's that?
Land of Hands.
Land of Hands?
Yeah.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, well, it came and went, mercifully. It wasn't a bad show for what it ended up being. It wasn't a bad show. Everybody who worked on it put in very, very good work. And it got a number of Gemini nominations.
Wow, okay.
And J.P. Houston, who did the music, did a wonderful job on it. The initial idea for it was meant for an older audience.
Okay.
Not adults.
Again?
The pre-teens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the humor in it was a little more roughhouse. And it was all about these prehistoric characters who'd be running around having these adventures in the past. I mean, cavemen and dinosaurs, basically. But the hook for it was that everything in the show was all made up of human body parts. So if you hold up your hand like it's a tree, we would make the hands into trees. It was literally a land of hands. So all the trees and
Terry Gilliam.
It had a lot of that kind of thing. Yeah. And the characters themselves, the caveman characters, we were doing that old trick where you shoot your head upside down. So your chin, sorry, I hit the mic. Your chin is the top of the head, and you stick little eyeballs on your chin there, and then you've got a little nose on your middle, and you get and then the rest of your face is covered by costume, and we would have these little puppet arms and do it all in green screen, and have these really weird characters going, and we had our hands being all these different. I'm demonstrating; you can not going to see it on your podcast, but using my hand as various kinds of dinosaurs
like
and creatures.
The thing from the Addams Family.
Yeah, all these different things, and so every element, all the leaves on the trees were all hands and everything else, and it just went on, and the design stuff for it was pretty incredible. And at the last minute, because of the way it was financed, it was with YTV. They said, well, we want to put money in, we want to split the license fee so it's between YTV and Treehouse, because we don't want that much money coming out of YTV's coffers. We go, fine, we don't care. Just pay us the money so we can make the show. And then at the last minute, this is literally 4 weeks before we started shooting, we already had 50 scripts written, we were already building the characters, and we were getting ready to shoot. They come back and say, because there's money from Treehouse, it has to skew younger.
Oh, boy.
So you have to change the entire concept, change the characters, and change the look and feel of the thing. And you've got 4 weeks to do it. Go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I felt that the entire thing was compromised. And because of that, a lot of the design aspects of it were really shortchanged. And I got very pissed off, and I was very grumpy through the entire thing.
Right.
The show itself, what it ended up being, if you didn't know any of that stuff behind it, people would go, hey, that's really cool. That looks like a nice little kid's show.
Oh, so that's good. But so it's just the politics and relationships.
For me, I knew what it could have been, and that just continues to eat me away like acid.
Maybe next time when we talk, you can tell me how you really feel about it.
Sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, lots of jokes about Canadian TV and where it used to be and where it is today. I mean, maybe you can help me understand shows like, Flashpoint, Ricky Blue.
I don't understand any of those shows.
Some of the production value of what you see is what that's called Canadian TV today is like miles ahead of where it was, kilometers ahead, light years ahead of where it was 20 years ago.
Sure.
From the Beachcomber days.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Adventures in Rainbow Country.
I've never known anyone to get into Canadian TV because that's where the money is.
Well, right? it can be, but it's a very small and exclusive club.
We make our money through tax credits.
Yes,
this kind of thing.
Well, that's true. I mean, the production end of things. A lot of producers exist and thrive because they're very adept at playing the game.
Right.
And, they know how to raise the money, they know how to leverage the tax credits, and they know they're going to be getting their fees, and the show itself isn't going to have any legs after that. And that's all they're doing is taking their upfront money and then piling another carcass onto the pile of old shows. You know?
Yes.
I love my visual metaphors.
Yeah, no, good.
But what's happened was in the last little while, they've been finding there is a U.S. market for these shows because the U.S. market is constantly expanding with the different specialty channels and things. And they know that they can produce cheaper up here than they can down the States. So if they're able to emulate a U.S. Product and do it at a lower cost, then they'll buy it. I mean, it's genre programming, yet another cop show. But what's nice about Flashpoint is it takes place in Toronto.
Yeah, it's all filmed in Toronto.
Yeah, they're not, but they're not pretending that it's someplace else.
That's right.
That's what's outstanding about that.
And the production value of what I've seen is very high.
Sure.
And the acting's great. The writing, I think, for the most part, is pretty crisp and very American, really.
Yeah, that's their audience. They're not making a Canadian show. Right, they're making an American show, and that's why they're succeeding.
So is it still Hollywood North?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we're still, the
Wasn't there an agent in town called Hollywood North?
We're still. I'm looking for the right word without being politically incorrect. Yes, we're still the cousin in the attic.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're the cheap labor, and they can speak our language, and depending on the productions, they favor the West Coast because it's in the same time zone, and it's just a quick north-south trip. Toronto, we've got the Pinewood Studios going here, and feature film stuff happening here, television stuff. Sure, there's a lot of that.
So before we come back to kind of what you're involved in and what you're up to right now, I'd like to hear how you're sort of leaning now more towards the internet almost.
Yeah.
Tell me, there's a great quote, and I can't remember who it is, but television is chewing gum for the eyes.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit more about your take on TV as a media. You have kids.
I do have kids.
Yeah, I've got a 5 and a 7-year-old right now. My wife and I, Elizabeth, are talking about things like violence and video games and when do we introduce them to this movie and that movie and those kinds of things. And yesterday, in fact, we were watching clips of Jackie Chan sequences.
Oh, great.
Online. And it was awesome. And so for the rest of the day, my son is talking about, Dad, do you think he would use like a Kleenex box? Or would he use like a lamp or maybe a coffee mug? And like everything he picked up in the house, he wanted to know if Jackie Chan would use to
and
take
the answer,
down
of
one
course,
of his
is
enemies.
yes.
And that's exactly what I said. I said, Spencer, whatever you can pretty much imagine, I think Jackie Chan would do it. And I saw some fight sequences that I've never seen before.
Jackie Chan's amazing.
They really are amazing. Yeah. There's this bit with a 10-foot aluminum ladder. I don't remember what film it's from.
Yeah, I remember that.
Holy cow, it's just awesome. The choreography and the work that went into that.
Well, the outtakes during the end credits.
That's true. Anyway, it was interesting because one of the sequences we watched was a bit more violent than, say, even, I wouldn't even say Empire Strikes Back is violent, but for a 5-year-old, it's got some moments. So there was a couple moments where Jackie shot somebody and then stabbed somebody as well. He had a piece of rebar off a construction site and then it ended up going into some guy's gut. So afterwards,
I'm sure he didn't mean to do it.
That's right. So Spencer says to me later, he goes, oh, you know what, Dad, they're a lot of fun, but I kind of like the ones without the guns.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of interesting for him to make that distinction at his age already. But anyway, so tell me more about that. I mean, I've felt like TV has been low end for years. And I think it's like a pox in society. But when you start to look at what's happening, there's some really amazing programming.
Oh, sure.
And some incredible stuff coming out in HBO and different things.
There always has been great shows that have been happening there, but there's always has been and always will be a lot of garbage as well. Was that you mentioned the thing, TV is chewing gum for the eyes. There's also theater is life, film is art, and television is furniture.
Right.
But it's true. A lot of the programming you see on TV, the only reason it's there is to keep the commercials from bumping together. The people who broadcast are not in the business of making shows for people to watch. They're in the business of selling their audience to their advertisers. That's what they do. The fact that you actually, in that system, get good shows that happen is remarkable, considering all the bullshit you've got to go through to get a show on the air.
Right.
The best stuff I think that's being done right now is on HBO. I think you're going to see Netflix rising to that same level.
New series that Kevin Spacey's produced.
Yeah. What the hell's it called?
Well, it's based on a David Mamet script, isn't it?
Yeah.
House of Cards.
House of Cards. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, and it's
sounds great.
I saw the first episode. It's really well done.
And directed by David Fincher.
Yeah.
which is bizarre, but so they're
it
competing
really
now
plays,
with HBO.
but they're on that level.
Yeah, sure.
And nobody expected that from them.
That's true.
Now, the thing with how the television market and internet, is changing and affecting. TV was always in the process of dumbing itself down when they started getting into specialty channels and niche marketing and getting these tiny little reality shows going because they were cheap to produce. And inadvertently, what they were doing was priming their own audience for being more accepting of the low-quality video that was becoming more and more available on the net. So you've got these short little funny home video kind of clips that are showing up on YouTube. When YouTube emerged, that really put the nail in the coffin.
Right.
And as the quality of the video online increases and the length and people's willingness to watch it longer and longer online, it became even more of a case of the TV industry cannibalizing itself. They fragmented themselves, and now they're sitting in a corner eating their own feet. And you've got the internet is now taking over that, and also not just because it's getting better online, but also because we now have these mobile devices, so we can watch it anywhere, and it's ubiquitous because it's available on your TV.
So do the stats support the fact that TV is no longer going to even be furniture? So that,
TV is going to become a part of the internet. Marsh McLuhan in '64, Understanding Media, said that old media becomes content of the new media. Doesn't mean that television is going to go away. It just means the way that we get it is going to change. But the way that the TV industry right now is reading that is, that means we're going to take over the internet, and the internet's going to be TV. And it's like, no, you're going to be a small part of the internet, and the rest of the internet is going to eat your lunch money. It's just
So you've had a bit of an internet TV experience. In fact, you did, I believe, a Kickstarter campaign to fund one of the.
It was Indiegogo that we used.
That's right, or a Kickstarter-like campaign. Sorry, I went on.
No, it was fun. It was interesting. I've gotten fed up with broadcast stuff. I kept pitching, and just realized, I don't want anybody to say yes, because then I got to go through all the hoops and everything else and raise this huge amount of money and take on all this business stuff I got to do. And I much rather prefer the immediate hands-on ability that the net provides, the web, being able to produce your own shows on the web and say, okay, I want to do this. And I've got the resources. I've got a camera. I've got lights. I've got talented friends, and we can all work together and we can make a show. What's it going to cost me? Whatever it is that's out of pocket. I can put it on my credit card. I can do whatever. Might not be the best quality, but I don't have to ask anybody for permission to do it. I don't have to go hat in hand to a funder or a broadcaster and say, please let me make my show, and then let them control how it's done or where it goes after that. So that is very, very liberating for me. And you were talking earlier about, am I doing it just as an artist or whatever? Part of that is an activism on my end, but also very much an artistic control of the things that I want to do and how I want to do them. So when we came up with the idea of doing Rufus the Dog's Christmas Carol, Rufus started out as a TV series. And when I left Radical Sheep, I got the rights to Rufus with that. And I immediately put all the old shows up online for free so people could watch them. And now we're producing new stuff for that. So we'll be doing new episodes called Rufus Rhymes. But back when we did Rufus the Dog's Christmas Carol, and it was a half-hour Christmas special, and it wasn't for broadcast, it was for the web. And we said, we're going to do this ourselves, and we need to raise some money so we can get a studio, and some basic props, and costume stuff that we need. We've already got these puppet characters. All we need to do is raise a bit of money. So we went on Indiegogo and said, we need it for this. We didn't raise everything we wanted to raise. We didn't quite get all the money. So we weren't able to shoot in a studio. So we said, screw it, we'll shoot in my living room. So we hung up a big, huge green screen, and we took over the whole house for props and costumes, and the place was a mess for a week. But in 4 days, we shot a half-hour Christmas special with 4 original songs and all puppet characters, and the backgrounds were all CG. Took a while to get those finished. But then once it was finally done, we've got this amazing Christmas special that every year we're going to be able to flog online, sell it on DVD. There's going to be a book version coming out. Wow. So, and without having to get a pat on the head from some corporate knob.
What Orson Welles could have done with his living room, right?
Oh, man, Orson with a phone in his pocket coming out, you'd be... just amazing. I was just the other day watching, there was a documentary on him called One Man Band.
Oh, I don't know that.
Yeah, his lover, Oja Kadar, I can't pronounce her name. She was with him right to the very end, and she's sort of been taking care of his estate and stuff. And so she was instrumental in getting this documentary of him done.
Wow.
But it was very much this whole notion of he just didn't want to be a part of the larger scheme of it. Yeah.
Well, he didn't want anything to do with the system, it seems, and yet he knew he was in it.
Sure.
But he critiqued it from inside, which I got a huge amount of respect for.
It was a great thing that he said at the AFI Lifetime Achievement Awards, and they got him up there, and he says, obviously I stand out amongst the crowd, and blah, blah, blah. And he says, in this age of supermarkets, and he gestured out across the audience, consider me your local grocer.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. Yeah, it's really things. I mean, to say things are changing is almost meaningless in a way. It's changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
So I was at the film festival a couple of years ago, and I think before every film, the trailer was a little 30-second movie that they were showing that somebody had shot on their cell phone. And I just kind of thought, wow, maybe in 10 years, TIFF's going to have the 30-second category. And you'll come in and get to see 20 of those in one sitting or something.
Well, we're hoping not this year, but next year, TIFF will have a web series category. And they'll be showcasing the work that's coming out of this country and others. That is amazing. I mean, I'm part of a group of people. We're setting up a nonprofit organization that's going to be representing independent web series creators all the way across Canada. And we started out as a group here in Toronto, and we had a Facebook group, and we get together once every 2 months, and have beers and say, how's it going for you? Oh, this is terrible. Oh, I need some lights. I got some lights. Oh, great. Hey, you want to be in my show?
Right.
And just started ballooning from that. We now have over 700 members just in Toronto alone.
That's amazing.
Hamilton has got a really thriving group.
Already, but do you actually have a nonprofit status?
It's been going. We've got the nonprofit status, but that's we're still dotting our I's, getting the articles and doing all that stuff. But prior to that, I mean, it's just community. And everybody's sharing it. It's quite different from what's going on in the States. There's the LA web community is very different. I mean, it's an industry town. Everybody's very, very competitive.
Yeah.
And they're all sort of elbowing, and everybody really wants to be on TV or make a feature film.
Right.
And so they're looking at the web thing as just a stepping stone. Whereas this community is like, this is a vibrant medium in and of itself. And shows like Out with Dad, Jason Lever's show, or Jill Gollick's Ruby Sky PI.
Yeah, I know.
There's a new one called Leslieville, which is really great. Pete Winning and the Pirates, Clutch, Guidestones. There's a whole bunch of these shows.
And so,
but they're doing really well. LA Web Fest, New York Web Fest, Marseille Web Fest. They're known around the world. And in each of these festivals, the majority of the submissions are from Canada. And the majority of the winning submissions are from Canada.
Are they making any money, though?
Some are.
Yeah. Because you're only in it for the money, right? We established that pretty early on.
I'm a whore, and all I want is the bucks. Send me your bucks, folks. I'll let you watch my stuff. It is send me cash.
That's right.
No, some people do it because they want awards. They want accolades. Yeah. Some people do it because they're actually actively trying to raise money either through subscription or advertising revenue. It varies. Some people go in without a clue as to how they're going to monetize it, and they stumble across it.
Right.
And other people have a big strategy, and it still doesn't work.
Watched a documentary recently, can't remember the name of it, online, about how to monetize your TV production or your film or your documentary that you're going to make, about selling product before, about having DVDs to sell as you go around and you show it at schools, and all these different ways of coming up and with money to actually produce the film that you want to make. And bumped into a friend of mine I hadn't seen in quite some time. His son just finished film school in Vancouver. Well, he and Dad are going to make a documentary film together now.
Awesome.
I mean, it's kind of a wild world that we live in from a media perspective.
Well, it's great.
You use the word ubiquitous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's even more. I mean, can it be more than ubiquitous? It's just, it's a part of our language.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah. Exactly. You're able to quote and comment in video now in a way that you weren't ever before. And one of the buzzwords a few years back was always the democratization of media.
Right.
The ability to have, pull a film studio out of your back pocket of your phone. You can edit, you can shoot, you can distribute, all from that one little box. Now, more than that, there's other cameras and gear that you can get, which used to cost a frickin' fortune to try to pull this stuff together. And now, it makes it available to everybody. It doesn't mean that there's going to be all these wonderful things. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of garbage.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But there's going to be gems that rise up out of that.
A lot of experimentation. And some pretty cool things will probably come out of that.
And Francis Ford Coppola was talking about that back when he was accepting the Academy Award for Apocalypse Now. He was talking about, there's going to be this fat kid, this little girl in Kansas who's going to make the next great feature film.
Right.
And everybody laughed at him. He's like, just watch it.
Yeah.
She's coming.
Well, you know what? And in some ways, what I know of Apocalypse Now and the way they hobbled that together. I mean, it was complete madness.
Sure.
Right? From a financing perspective and Martin Sheen's problems and just everything, the weather and how long it took them to shoot. Wasn't it 18 months to shoot or something?
Oh, yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, because they went in, they ignored Roger Corman's advice and went in during monsoon season.
And all kinds of stuff.
Had their sets blown away.
So in a way, I wonder how that parallels the Canadian film industry today. You know?
Well, it's different, except all of the shit we've got to slog through is bureaucratic. It's not actually...
Right. It's not actually on the ground stuff.
No.
Yeah.
But it's just getting back to the producing stuff for the web, what's really neat about this is that a filmmaker, however experienced or inexperienced, has the opportunity to reach a worldwide audience making their own material, and however they promote it or however they try to monetize it, there's a level of success that would be unattainable through normal conventional methods of production and distribution. I was just talking about the monetization thing. Some people stumble into it. There's a group out in Montreal called Movie Seals, and they've been doing a lot of genre feature film direct-to-DVD stuff. But they said, well, let's do a web series. And they did a thing called Heroes of the North, because they knew a bunch of stunt performers who looked pretty good. And they thought, we'll just dress them up in ridiculous-looking spandex, and they can punch each other in the head and crack jokes, and they'll be real, true Canadian superheroes. And they put it up online, and response was pretty good, and they got people saying, well, is there going to be a graphic novel, man? And they're like, yeah, there's going to be a graphic novel. So they quickly put together a graphic novel of it, put that out, and people were clamoring for more episodes. They're like, oh man, what are we going to do? So they actually had an audience build up around them that they were reaching out, but at the same time, the response they got surprised them. Mm-hmm. And so they made these little figurines, about almost a foot tall, of each of the characters. They sculpted these things, sent them off to China, got them cast in metal, limited edition, all painted up, kind of stuff you'd find in the back of Silver Snail. And they put these up online and said, limited edition, we're selling them $80 a pop. And they sold out like that. Wow. And with that alone, they were able to finance their second season.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So they didn't anticipate that.
That's a great story.
Yeah, and again, every show has got a different audience. It's a different genre. How you approach your audience is going to change what your monetization plans are. You have to be in conversation with your audience. So there isn't one standard business model, rubber stamp that you can follow.
Isn't it fair to say that that's still being kind of crafted in a way?
Sure.
If there ever will be a standard business model? I mean,
I think some standard business models will be found that can be adapted.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's ever going to be one.
Yeah.
Now those days are gone.
Yeah. I was, I don't know, 6 months ago, get together with some people, and a guy gets a phone call. He gets off the phone call, big smile on his face. He goes, yeah, that was a musician I used to listen to 25 years ago. He just did a Kickstarter campaign that I donated $50 to. They just finished filming the movie, and that was his personal phone call to me to thank me for the $50 that I donated. This guy actually sat down. He raised $385,000. They filmed the film. He called every single person that donated, and this is like 18 months. Hey, Scott, it's Steve Taylor here. I just wanted to say a personal thank you. And this guy was like, I'm getting a shiver because of the way he told the story. Like, he was so blown away that he got this phone call from this guy, to say, thanks for the $50 that you put into my film.
Yeah.
And I donated to a friend's film campaign. I have no idea. I think he's in Fiji right now. But
well, I feel remiss with the Indiegogo stuff because we raised money, and then there were you promised these perks. You get like little posters and TV shirt, T-shirt. And the last remaining perk was the DVD, the special edition DVD, just for the Indiegogo supporters. Well, we've got them. They're in a box in the next room. I haven't mailed them out yet, but I've got the list. I'm all set to do envelope stuffing. They got to go out. Yeah. It's only been a year and a half.
So tell me, only a year and a half.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more. You talked about yourself as being a bit of an activist.
Well,
tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, well, part of it,
you're just fed up? You're done?
Well, yeah, in terms of the broadcast industry and in terms of just how policy is affecting communications media, I've been really turned around over the last few years, realizing that the things that make it possible for us to do the web series the way that we're doing them right now, that can be taken away very, very quickly and very, very easily. And not just from bureaucratic bumbling, but from active work on part of large media corporations, colluding with government interests that do not align with the public good.
Right.
the film and television industry, the established film and television industry, hates what's going on with the web, just as the music industry does, because they don't like the idea that people can share, they don't like the idea that people can talk freely to each other, and they don't like the idea of people being able to create their own media. Right. And if they could shut that down, they would. That's why you're constantly seeing bills like in the States, SOPA, PIPA, the CISPA, which is coming back again. It has to be defeated. The
you
copyright
sound like cereals.
Yeah, I know. ACTA
CISPA?
It says I don't know what the hell the acronyms are for, but it says the SOPA was Stop Online Piracy Act.
Oh, okay.
And the CISPA one is sort of couched in terms of let's protect the children from pornography. And yet the provisions in it have nothing to do with that. And it has everything to do with corporations being able to cut you off from access to the internet,
right.
or
right.
being able to overcharge you to have access to the internet while they themselves cut a sweeter deal. So for an independent producer to be able to make work that can be freely seen on the net, right. that is being threatened. For someone to be able to exercise free speech on the net, that's being threatened. This really irks me. And the fact that net neutrality is a big, huge deal with me. Because I keep going on about how net neutrality equals freedom of speech.
What? I don't know the term. What's net neutrality?
Net neutrality means that you cannot charge for specific access to information across the net. If you want to set up a portal and say, I've got this information, you want to pay for it, great, you can do that. But you cannot define the net in these limited terms that allow it to become a series of gated communities. The net is supposed to be a free flow of information. The World Wide Web is supposed to be interconnected worldwide. It is. Tim Berners-Lee, the guy who created the World Wide Web, came up with the protocols that allowed the web to become what it is. He's a really strong proponent of net neutrality and talks about we have to have the ability to freely speak to each other. It's like you're walking down the street, you're talking with a friend, some guy in a business suit thrusts himself in between you and says, hey, if you want to keep talking to your friend, you got to spare a few minutes and I'll talk to you about my product. Hey, here, take a brochure while you're at it. Hey, but just 1 second before you continue the conversation. Yeah. Pay me some money. No. If that happened on the street, I'd punch the guy in the throat.
Right.
So, these are. I'm not articulating it very well because I do get very impassioned about it. Yeah. But
I thought you were in it just for the money.
Me? No, man. Because I'll take that money and I'll turn it around and I'll contribute it to causes that.
Tell me you actually got some moral fiber and conscience here, Rob.
I try to hide it. I don't want people to know.
You're on the net now. You're not going to be able to hide a thing.
It's true. There's no privacy on the net. Yeah, okay. I'm a nice guy.
You're a nice guy. That's right.
Leave me alone.
So it is the future. Is it the future of film and TV then?
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to have film in theaters, but it's going to become more and more like opera, where it's a much more expensive proposition to create.
See, I'm old enough, I'm 47, I'm old enough to not want to watch TV on the internet. Mm-hmm. Like it's not cool to me, or it's not high enough quality, or the screen's not big enough, or whatever, and I much prefer to see it on my big screen in the basement, or,
Well, but that's the thing, seeing it on the big screen in your basement.
Yeah.
Not that long ago. That didn't exist.
That didn't even exist. Yeah, that's true.
I remember reading an interview. It was one of those Faber books on filmmaking, and it was all about Don Siegel, who was did Two Mules for Sister Sarah and a bunch of things.
Right, all the Clint films.
Yes. Well, he was Clint Eastwood's directorial mentor. Right. He helped Clint learn how to direct.
For Sister Sarah.
I know.
How old are you?
I'm 55. I saw it in the theaters when it first came out.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's a long story. But he was mentioning it in an interview, talking about, he was talking to another director, and he says, he was mentioning a film he was referencing and saying, it should be something like blah, blah, blah. And the other director says, I've never seen that film. He says, you got to watch it. So they went to the studio, booked a screening room, got the film pulled from the library, and got a projectionist in so they could watch it. Yeah. This was in the early 70s. That's what it took to watch a film when you wanted to watch it.
Well, I grew up at the library, Albion Library in Rexdale. We had to book a projector. Yep. We had to book the Laurel and Hardy movies 2 weeks before. And then we'd have friends over, order pizza in. I don't even know if you could order pizza then. It'd be like this big event.
Yeah.
Had to take a course on how to operate the projector. It's ridiculous.
I was an AV geek. I was an AV geek at the school. Yeah.
charming on one hand, but when in seconds, I could have it up on my BlackBerry.
Well, exactly.
And I could be watching the Laurel and Hardy movie
That's exactly it. Well, just talking Laurel and Hardy.
Depends on the version of BlackBerry.
Yeah. But when you're raising your child up on Jackie Chan stuff, the first stuff I was showing my kid was Warner Brothers cartoons and Laurel and Hardy stuff.
Yeah.
So he's got an appreciation for black and white silent stuff that a lot of other kids at school don't even know about. It.
So, Rob, we're almost done. I can't believe it. I know it's ridiculous, so we'll have to do this again. Can you tell me a little bit more about Rufus with 2 F's, the dog, and that's your big production now?
That's the main one. We've got one called Rubber Chicken Players, which hasn't launched yet. I'm still editing that, and it's really stupid. We're doing feature films, plays, famous novels.
Okay.
But each episode lasts maybe 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So Death of a Salesman, curtains part, chicken knocks on the door, he's got a little suitcase, knocks on the door, and a big safe drops down. Curtains closed, that's it. Fun. So it's that sort of thing. But we've done 2001 Space Odyssey, Braveheart, 12 Angry Men. The list goes on and on. Cool. We've shot 40. We've got scripts for another 60.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of nutty.
Yeah.
So that's going to be coming out soon. But the Rufus Project, the overall Rufus Project, we've got storybooks based on the original shows that are being put together for print to order. We've got new episodes called Rufus Rhymes, which are 4.5 minutes each, and it's all taking the piss out of Mother Goose and having a lot of fun with that, sort of deconstructing how rhymes, nursery rhymes work, but at the same time having fun with it and being silly and goofy. The Rufus Steampunk Adventure, which is going to be this 45-minute long epic with, first time we'll combine live actors with our puppet characters for this stuff. So we'll have the full steampunk stuff, people, corsets and ray guns and goggles and airships, oh my. And that'll be a lot of fun. And we're putting together a trailer for a longer feature film length, but we're probably going to break it into serialized components, which is definitely not a kid's thing. It's the working title is Asteroids, but we have to change that because of the game and its studios.
Yeah. So one of my favorites.
Yeah, but it's not that game. It's something else.
Okay.
But it's a science fiction epic war adventure thing that goes really dark.
Sounds pretty cool. All to be aired on the internet, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's...
screw TV, screw film.
That's right.
Internet rules.
That's right. That's Robbo Mills, ROBBO Mills, MILLS.net. That's his website. And then rufusthedog.net. That's with 2 F's. Check it out. I'm sure you can access Rob if you so desire. So Rob, one last question. If TV is chewing gum for the eyes, what's the internet to the eyes?
Oh, the internet? Depends what porn site you're looking on.
Great. Former director of CBC Kids, folks. Yes. Yes, it did seem to want to go there, didn't it?
Yeah. It could be termed chewing gum for the brain. Depends how you use it.
Yeah.
It's a tool.
It's a tool. No,
the difference between it and television? Television is a top-down feeder.
Yeah.
And the internet is you go in there, you roll up your sleeves, and you make it what you want to make it.
Yeah, I think that's really accurate and pretty wise and pretty helpful. Thank you for
my pleasure. Thanks
being
for
here
talking
today. Hopefully we'll have you back.
There's our audio.